Well, good morning, and thank you for all of you being here. First, I think we should start this off the right way by all of you giving yourselves a round of applause for being here to support some incredible women entrepreneurs and some incredible women who are in the field of philanthropy and just changing life and making a difference. Let's give everyone a round of applause. So we're going to start by hearing from the panelists, and they are incredible ladies. I would like all of them to take a few brief moments to introduce themselves. We'll begin with Sophia Swire, and she is just an incredible lady. And Sophia, why don't you begin by telling us what you do and why it's so important to you as well as to those of us who really appreciate your work.
Thank you very much, Kelly. I've spent the last 25 years, most of my adult life, trying to combat extremism in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region through a combination of education for girls and more recently economic opportunity and job creation for boys and girls in the artisan space in Afghanistan. I've spent the last 8 years working with jewelers and gem cutters and artisanal miners, trying to help them unlock the economic potential of their massive gemstone mineral resources. And I believe it's terribly important because in today's world, I believe that nothing stops a bullet faster than a job. And economic empowerment for women in particular is necessary in these countries that are prone to the imbalance of Islamic extremism. We must do what we can to provide opportunities for girls. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. Seated next to Sophia Swire is Martha Muffy MacMillan. She is the director on the Cargill Incorporated Foundation Board and Waycrosse Incorporated, and we want to hear from Muffy right now about the things that matter to her as she introduces herself to you.
Good morning. I have such a passion about what I do, I don't even know where to begin. I started out with as a family member within a company, Cargill, which I'm very proud of because its philanthropic tentacles and the hundreds of countries and the hours, the Cargill employees, there's 160,000, they end up around in 58 different countries and giving away $58 million. I'm very proud to be in a company that thinks about the rest of the world, wants to give, that develops a lot of pride, and we're celebrating our 150th anniversary. I mention Cargill because through the company and giving and being able to support everybody around the world, from farmers to women to entrepreneurs, I got involved in an organization called Opportunity International, and it's in microloans, and it is in 30 different countries, and this is about women. 93% of our clients are women, 98% do pay back their loans. Yeah, and our job is to create 20 million jobs by 2020. That's our mission. And so to tie it all together, I'm very proud whenever we can help women develop dignity, self-respect, pull themselves up, and help them be all they can be.
That's awesome. Thank you, Muffy. And we're going to go to my far left now, and I would allow at this point Kalia to introduce herself, a public health specialist, an advocate, and a founder of, I'll let you say that name so I don't mispronounce it. Falcora. Okay. Kalia, please let people know who you are and what you strive to do.
Thank you, Kelly. Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kalia, and I'm the co-founder with my husband, Thomas Ermakora, of an organization called Falcora. At the moment, we are focused on looking at the structural conditions that can increase sort of happiness and mental health well-being, as well as the internal things that can increase the incidence of sort of mental health and well-being. So right now, about 13% of the world's total disease burden is mental health related. 1/4 of the years that people live are with a disability, mostly related to mental health. which is about 450 million people worldwide, there is a 2.5 to 3 trillion per year economic impact of this. And it's something that is largely unaddressed. In most of these conferences, in most of the health conversations, you hear about the great successes we've had with leukemia, with heart disease, with HIV, where really we've reduced the burden and we've saved the lives of millions of people. But when it comes to mental health, very little has changed in the past 100 to 150 years. One person every 15 minutes dies of suicide in the United States. That's 38,000 suicides every year. That's a lot. And I think what we've seen lately is an epidemic of violence of proportions we've never seen before. So with Falcora, we're really focusing on different ways to address this issue of mental health, which affects everyone. And literally 1 in 5 of you will be impacted directly by this at one point in your life. So with that, I'd say we've gone at it in different directions, but we're really excited because frankly, happiness is something we all deserve. Dignity is something we all deserve, and I'm really pleased to be here with a panel of so many women that are working to make a difference in developing that. So.
Very good. Please. And then to my immediate left, to your right, Andrea Courser, founder of the Lalala Project. And Andrea, tell us about your life and all that you're doing. All of these ladies are very fascinating, as I told you.
Thank you, Kelly. Good morning. I really feel honored to be here, sitting up here with these wonderful women around me. My name is Andrea. I am the co-founder of the Lalala Project. Lalala provides educational arts to at-risk youth to spark creative thinking and awaken the entrepreneurial spirit. I grew up in apartheid South Africa. I grew up as a privileged white woman there. I spent the last probably 15, 20 years until I founded the Lalala Project working in asset management. Apartheid devastated South Africa, and 20 years later, the consequences are still rampant in that country. In the age group of 18 to 25-year-olds in South Africa, you have an unemployment rate that is close to 70%. With that, you have a disenfranchised youth, people resorting to violence, gangs, sexual abuse. So we founded Lalala with the hope of using the arts not only as a psychosocial tool, but really as a tool to help kids massage their right brain, to help them imagine a different possibility, a different future for themselves. And we not only give them the tools to imagine a different future for themselves, we also provide them with tools to actually create that future. So within Lalala, we really link arts to academic achievement, to life skills, to character development. And that's why we do what we do. And hopefully, within South Africa, with such a high unemployment rate, you're not going to have enough jobs to fulfill all the youth that are rising up through the country. You have to have entrepreneurs. We also have a female empowerment program, which we developed through the arts. As we found that 50%, we have 50% girls and boys who join our program. By the time they're getting to 10th grade, the girls are dropping out. They're dropping out because of household chores, and because of the fact they don't believe that they really have a future for themselves. So thank you very much for being here.
So as we've heard, so many different disciplines, yet very interchangeable, and it talks about our common hope and our common good, our common ground, is to see how these ladies apply gifts that matter. And it goes beyond just the giving away of money. It also goes into giving away your time, your talent, in addition to your treasure, your brain power, your faith, your hope, and also the pain. I want to ask the ladies here, the gifts that matter, do you find that the greatest gift that matters not necessarily comes from the philanthropy in terms of charitable contributions, but the charitable contributions of love in action, you rolling up your sleeves and getting involved in the various concerns that you're faced with? And I pose that question. Muffy, why don't we begin with you first?
I have a very poignant example pertaining to Opportunity International about a gift that matters. I believe, first of all, you need to be boots on the ground. As far as I'm concerned, I think you need to live it, breathe it, act it, go out and see the people, be with the people, and that's what I do. I go and actually interact and spend a lot of time. That's the meaningful part. And I do want to tell you this story, because when you talk about gifts that matter, I was in Africa. I met a woman who had survived the genocide. The genocide, 1 million people were slaughtered, 1 million people fled. This woman watched her husband and all of her children and her babies be slaughtered. She was stabbed in the back. She had her baby in a backpack on the back. She fell to the ground. 5 days she drank her dead husband's blood. I went to see her. This is 9 years later. Here she is, an artisan. I mean, she has shops. She's making things. She has self-worth. And to see a woman who literally lost everything, and to see her stand up, rise up, make something of her life because of small microloans, because of helping. That is probably one of the best examples of gifts matter. You have a woman who's alive.
And certainly that is a powerful story, and it's a powerful story that happens here and now. Kalia, the gifts that matter in terms of what you've been able to provide in helping people with mental health issues is extremely important, given the fact, as you mentioned, the suicide rate globally, it's menacing. You look at here in America, we talk a lot about our military members who returned from harm's way, where they've been fighting in combat, and 22 military veterans commit suicide every day. But let's look at the larger picture, and that's the fact that so many people are walking around with mental health. We just heard Muffy talk about a woman who certainly went through a devastating situation, and her story reminds me of the phenomenal woman, and Still I Rise. But there are some people who do not rise. So your efforts in terms of philanthropy and gifts that matter, what are the gifts that truly matter in terms of dealing with the mental health issue?
Well, Kelly, I do think that mental health is a human right, and this is something that is glossed over fairly frequently. I was a Peace Corps volunteer for 2 years in Bulgaria, and the mortality statistics for most of the post-Soviet Union were worse than places like Burkina Faso, where you had no sanitation, despite the fact that these were developing world and were developed countries. We're actually seeing the same thing now in the United States. We just had a statistic that came out about white middle-class Americans dying 20 years younger than some of their cohorts because of the fact that, because of diet, because of mental health, because of hypertension, which is mentally health related, because of a lot of structural issues that make it so that life can be difficult even when it seems that it's not. So I think you look at this, and for example, when I was in Bulgaria, there were two things that were going on. I had a multi-drug resistant lung infection, which was obviously very dangerous, and that's an infectious disease kind of issue. This is something that we have to work on as a society, because obviously with antibacterial resistance you have problems like this. But the other one was actually a mental health issue, which was much more entrenched and harder to deal with. But this is one that I've turned around to look at, because infectious disease, we know where it is, we know how to stop it, we know where to find it, but mental health issues are like a net. It's not a border, it's a net. You have to figure out how can you help, and helping is often something that we can do one-on-one. So coming to gifts that matter, the fact is that we all have a part in that. What you're mentioning of the vets that returned from war, the fact is the suicide statistics for these vets are astounding. But these are people that we sent out. They were there protecting us, and they come back to no net. And the fact is that there are things out there that can help them. They're politically difficult. For example, there is a treatment out there now, which is an MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, which for vets has so far in the studies shown that within 2 treatments, you can get treatment-resistant depression and PTSD down to 4 years without any symptoms at all. That's an astonishing statistic. And this is something that when you look at somebody who is on the verge of suicide all the time, that is struggling with day to day, and these are people that gave their lives for us. The fact that we would let them suffer and potentially die with no treatment, to me, is a mental health issue that needs to be seen as a human rights issue. So, going on to trauma, also with people in the developing world that have seen things like that in civil rights contexts where you have these border disputes, where you watch so many people die. To recover from that is not simply to say, here's a job all the time, because sometimes you can't work because you're too upset about what you've seen to be able to do so. So I think, for me, giving the gift that matters, looking at some of these root causes that are out there, and then doing whatever we can to be available to people. And sometimes in our daily lives, that means just looking at your coworker and understanding that maybe that they were sick, not because they actually had the flu, but because something really important was going on in their life, and that maybe they need your support in dealing with that. So, sorry, that was a long answer.
Very good, though. Very good answer. And Sophia, let me turn my attention to you in the same question again. The gift that truly matters. It goes beyond, as we've discussed in the past, it goes beyond money, it goes beyond charitable contributions. And what we're hearing from our panelists so far is that it really goes to the core of your being and what you choose to give. And certainly with you working with young women in Afghanistan, you are where the end of the spear, so to speak, is taking place. We've known for a long time now the Afghan people have gone through so much war. They are constantly on a war footing. It is a way of life for them. They are constantly facing the tyranny of an oppressive regime from the Taliban, and freedom is not something that they can easily attain. So if you can explain how the gifts that you give truly matter to those young women in Afghanistan.
So following on from what Kalia was saying, she's absolutely right. Many of I would argue that almost every citizen in Afghanistan is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder to one extent or another. And I do think it affects their ability to work in a functional way. I believe that when we design these projects, these interventions for the Afghans and for other nationals from post-conflict communities, it's very important to think of the project holistically. So what we did was we brought in a psychosocial trauma counsellor. In our first project, we had 36 artisans from all over Afghanistan, from Badakhshan, from Panjshir, Sarobi. This probably means nothing to you. But we also had 11 women who had to argue with their families for 6 months before they were actually allowed to come. And when they arrived, we took them to Jaipur, which is one of the centers of gemstone and jewelry manufacturing in the world, in order to give them exposure to different ways, to more professional ways of doing things in a peaceful environment. And when they arrived, the girls were wearing burqas, the full shuttlecock cover up, and they covered up their eyes. Very slowly, we gradually saw their eyes and then their face, and then slowly the shuttlecock came off. And it was wonderful to see how they grew in confidence. And it was partly, I think, exposure to different ways of being, and also partly the training that we gave them in confidence boosting, and as well as the psychosocial counselling that we gave them for their post-traumatic stress, which they were all suffering from. So I would say very important to sort of approach these problems holistically, understand every aspect of what the young ladies are going through. And the other thing is, at Future Brilliance, we've always tried to train our learners to impart the wisdom and the learning that they've received to others. So we ensured that they all received training of trainers. They all had City and Guilds certification in training of trainers. And when they went back to Afghanistan, they took on apprentices and they shared their learning. So I think that not only giving of oneself is important, but encouraging and inspiring others to give, so that there's a trickle-down effect and you can be far more effective, more bang with your buck. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. So in South Africa, Andrea, what are the things that you find where the gift truly matters? I mean, we hear a lot about South Africa, and we understand that it's gone through so much turmoil, but we also understand that there's a lot of hope and promise there when you look at so many different people who have tried to do some great things and continue to do good things like yourself there. The gift that matters, how does it go beyond just giving away money to certain programs.
Agreeing with Sophia, really, what you said about the trickle-down effect is really important for us because you have such a large population group that are unemployed and in trouble in South Africa. Yes, there's a lot of hope in South Africa, but there's still a huge, huge disparity between the wealthy and the not wealthy, and the wealthy being a very small minority of people in South Africa. The best way for me to express a gift that matters is also sharing a story like Muffy did, which is one young man who joined our program about 5 years ago. When he joined our program, he was involved in gangs. He was a gang leader. He was a drug addict. He was smoking marijuana on a daily basis, and he had no hope. He was highly in debt. He was living in a shack. He met our community leader, and he decided to come to one of our classes because he said he'd always been interested in art, but he'd never picked up a paintbrush. He picked up a paintbrush and discovered a real passion for art. He was a really quiet young man, and he joined our leadership program, and I thought to myself, like, why is he in our leadership program? He could barely talk. And he recently shared a story with us when he said the first time he saw a piece of his art hanging up in a local gallery, the confidence that it inspired in him, he knew he could accomplish anything. To cut a long story short, this young man graduated with a matric high school degree. He joined us for a year as an intern. We helped him develop a portfolio. He's now second year at university studying graphic design. In June this year, talking about giving back and paying it forward, in June this year we work in one community called MacMillan, which has been recently in news in South Africa. There have been riots on a daily basis there. I wanted to go visit and see Ulysses, this young man, said he wouldn't even let me into the township. So in June this year, we took a decision that we're actually not going to move away from MacMillan and go into other communities where we feel we could have more impact. And he looked at me and he said to me, no, you can't. He goes, look what Lalela did for me. He goes, I will go in there and I will teach. And this young man is taking all our classes during the riots. He went in, he stayed over, and he wouldn't leave his students. And that's about really trickle-down effect and paying it forward. So for me, going in, as Muffy said, and actually rolling up your sleeves and seeing the impact of your investment is the biggest gift one can actually receive.
That's great. That's fantastic. You see, when I looked at the title of this and I saw the title saying Gifts That Matter, I kept thinking, philanthropy. How many people in the audience will be looking for that handout, that all-important, I'm doing this great project, can you give me some money? And that's what happens a lot of times with philanthropic people. They're always hit on for their dollars and what they can give in terms of monetary value. So I wanted you to see that from the heart of these wonderful ladies here today, it goes beyond money. It goes into they give because they know what they're giving to. They have rolled up their sleeves. They've gotten in the muck and the mire and the clay, and in that form and fashion, they've watched God make that mold of something good, something special, like a phoenix rising out of the ashes. But I know there's some people here who are curious about what these kinds of groups look for, and so I'm not monopolizing their time and telling you what I think the group should look for. Muffy, I'll ask you, what do you look for in an organization, a nonprofit organization that's trying to find its way and perhaps teetering on the edge financially, and yet they're still doing a great work? What do you look for that causes you to say, we'll partner with you, we'll give to this to make sure that it gets up and running?
I look for an organization where these women have the passion, have the ability, have the ambition, and they want to make a difference. You know, I look for organizations where the impact is going to be so meaningful, and I always sort of feel a little story is sort of helpful. And I was in Nicaragua, and it was a very interesting situation because my father had passed away just recently, 5 months, and I'm standing out in these fields, and the farmer is harvesting yucca. And he is so excited about this yucca he's harvesting. He can feed his children. He can make a difference with his family. And then all of a sudden, Opportunity International, which I did not know at the time, with their passion, they were developing a machine, very rudimentary machine, to crush this yucca. That same day, I had no idea that Cargill was right down the street. And this very day that I was there, talking about looking for things that make a difference. The world is about collaboration. The world is about joining together to have the most profound impact. That day, it was so amazing. It was Cargill, Opportunity International, and the farmer that collaborated together. The farmer harvested the yucca, Opportunity International crushed it, and Cargill bought it. Now, I want to give to that.
So you can see that there's a lot of, as I talked about before, interchanging, and there's so many different organizations in the world that share every concern that these wonderful people have here at the podium giving this panel discussion. You know, Sophia, the title alone says Future Brilliance. I love that because you've tied in the jewelry, about the brilliance of the clarity of a diamond, the clarity of jewelry, but you've also talked about the brilliance in a child's heart. And I love that you were able to capture that. And can you share a little bit more about that entire title, the Future Brilliance, and how you bring the brilliance out of someone living in an area where there is nothing but ugly?
At Future Brilliance, we believe that everybody has inherent brilliance within them. It's just a question of helping them unleash their brilliance on the world. So you're absolutely right, Kelly. The name is inspired by the quality of an unfaceted, unpolished gemstone. It was inspired by our first project. So I'm just going to show you a photograph. You probably won't be able to see it here, but these are hand-carved lapis and turquoise beads. And this business is run by the most inspirational woman, not a girl, but a woman. She's actually 52 years old. She's illiterate, and she's known as the commander in her local village because she runs the economies of her local village and also the neighboring village. She was one of our beneficiaries. She came to Jaipur and trained with us for 6 months, and I'm very proud to say that she's behind this effort to unleash the natural brilliance of Afghan women.
So let's go back to the Lalala Project, because you said some things, you unpacked a lot there, and you unpacked what I think everyone here has talked about as well. And we haven't mentioned that, how you have brought together a project in South Africa that provides mentoring from the aspect of helping a young child see that they can have a future and a hope. And that's a gift that matters. And so when you're looking at other projects that are similar to what you do, how do you pick those out and realize we have to give to this?
Thank you, Kelly.
Gotcha.
That's a really important question. We're always looking for partnerships and collaboration, not so much in terms of giving financially, but in training up people within other communities. So we look for other youth empowerment organizations that are showing a measurable impact in the communities in which they work. Organizations that have the same intended outcome as we do, but that do not provide the arts. So we go into these communities and partner with other organizations in order to sort of provide a more holistic education to the youth that are really highly in need. Our name, Lalela, talking about names, means to listen. And that was very important in choosing this name. We traveled through Africa for years before we actually went for our 501c3, working with other organizations. We worked with the International Rescue Committee, and we worked with UNICEF, both in Eastern Chad, working with refugee children from Darfur, and in Eastern Congo. And everywhere we went, it was really important that we really listened to the needs of the community. So for us, it's a reminder on a daily basis to listen to what is needed, what our students need, what other organizations need, and how we can partner to become more effective together.
That's great, and as a result of that, you're making an impact. I'm reminded of course, what Nelson Mandela stood for, and a powerful story about forgiveness. And it's painful to forgive, but it's even more painful if you do not forgive, and that goes directly to a mental health situation as well, Kalia, because the capacity to forgive actually helps one overcome their past, to realize that they have a wonderful and bright present and can create a great future. So when you get into the mental health issues, part of the problem that we have is that a lot of times when we return from war or we return from a very difficult situation, we have not forgiven ourselves. So we have not accepted ourselves. Consequently, we go through some very difficult times. So how does your gift that matter reach out to organizations that are putting funding into the research of mental health, and not only funding into the research of it, but also into how you can dispense it? For example, you're talking about the medical breakthrough that you can stop suicide with treatment.
Yes, well, first I just want to say thank you to everyone here, because in some ways you've hit upon the things that matter in mental health. You know, rolling your sleeves up, grit, working out what it is that needs to be done, and just doing it, applying yourself. And then with Sophia, just the brilliance in everyone, that we're all these rough diamonds that have the opportunity to become something beautiful if the effort is put in there, if we're given the support and the nurturing that we need, and with the creativity that actually everybody needs to feel dignified and to feel like they're self-expressed, and often that's in creativity or in some sort of an outward projection of who you are. So to come to, you know, gifts that matter, I think everyone here is giving a gift of themselves by, you know, really making a point of what matters in a human and respecting that and cultivating that. And in philanthropy, it's the same. You know, if you want to get involved with something, if you want to give, you give of yourself, you can give of your money, but it has to be something that really impassions you. Because if you care, it's your own diamond that's shining brightly. If it's something that you're just giving money to, you're not going to give as much as you would, because you're not giving of yourself, and you're not giving of sort of what you have that's so special. So in mental health research, yes, we have some really groundbreaking drug therapies that are out there now that need all of our support so that we can have the kinds of breakthroughs we've had in HIV, leukemia, heart disease. This is really something that is on the agenda right now that we all need to help with. But there's other ways. When I first started getting involved in entrepreneurship, I was one of the founding board members of Venture for America. And it was quite literally that I went to a luncheon and they said, "We have no diversity on our board." And I said, "Well, you know, I'm female, Muslim, not really in the tech community, but I used to be in computer science. I'm happy to join because I like you." He said, "Sure." This is now in the White House. He's one on the Innovation Entrepreneur of the Year. I mean, this is Andrew Yang. It's now billions of dollars a year in terms of a philanthropy. It's become huge, but it's because you had early support, and because it was, you know, it was somebody that I liked, and I liked what he was doing, and it jived with who I am. So it was, you know, a mutual situation of brilliance. But in terms of mental health, I think it's really that we all have the opportunity every day to be a part of making somebody else's day better. You know, the biggest predictor of happiness is the 6 people that are closest to you, your support network. And we all have the opportunity to be that person. It's projected that by 2030, 1 in 5 of us will have a major sort of depressive episode. Let's stop that. Let's be nice to each other. Let's support each other.
My, the time flies, especially when you're learning something, and when the learning is fun, and when it's fundamental and it gets right to the core. So let's see if I can wrap this up very quickly. I can't speak better than these ladies have spoken here today. These women are incredible women who are doing, in my opinion, God's work, and I don't throw that out easily. Because I think God is so much bigger than me and deals with things. And yes, I do talk about that. I'm a newsman who believes in the power of the good news. Oh, well, you have to live with it since I have the mic. But I would tell you that the reason why I have enjoyed this panel, the reason why I've enjoyed meeting these 4 incredible women, is because they remind me of my own mother. My mother gave me the gift that mattered, and that was love, and that was life, and that was her courage. And I won't get into all the background about why my mother is so special, but suffice it to say, my mother overcame a whole lot to make sure that a young black kid growing up in the hood could actually grow up and to do some good. And I stand before you today as a man reared by an incredible woman of faith, a woman of hope, a woman of love. And so I'm going to close with this because, Kalia, you hit the nail on the head. Be available to people. Muffy, you talked about it. Sophia, Andrea, all of you are doing that. You're available to people. And as a result of being available to people, you are bringing about a future brilliance. And it's a whole person concept. You talked about holistically. It's mental health, it's physical health, it is spiritual health. So I'll close with this. My mother always said, wherever you go, realize that you're an uninvited guest into someone's home, be on your best behavior, and then let people know, if I can help somebody as I travel on, if I can help somebody with a word or a song, if I can help somebody who is traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. If we can help each other, God bless you. Thank you.